I'm here with my beautiful, wonderful friend and sister, professional astrologer Karen Teal. And today we're going to talk about some of the very significant events that are coming up for the rest of September, including the full moon eclipse on September 17th and Venus moving into Scorpio and all there's all kinds of stuff happening. September, is the month of Virgo, and this season is not disappointing. It is a workhorse. I think everybody is feeling that. Yeah, we're going to start out by talking about the eclipse. This is going to be a big deal. Karen, do you want to go over what is happening with that eclipse on my birthday?
Yeah, that's what I was going to start with. That eclipse is happening on your birthday, which is September 17th. The eclipse will be at 25 degrees of Pisces, and it will be a full moon lunar eclipse. So, usually, when you have a full moon, there's quite a lot of emotional things that can come up. And when you have an eclipse, it can almost doubly enhance everything. So, don't be worried if emotions are high. We're looking at the sign of Pisces here, which is known for being quite emotional, wearing their heart on their sleeve. There's also some really deep spiritual implications to this full moon lunar eclipse. If you are a magic practitioner, this would be an excellent day for ritual work because we're in this very spiritual sign of Pisces. It's at a later degree, which means kind of more finality because we're coming to the end of the degrees of Pisces, which after that we would go into Aries and start a new cycle again. So there's really a lot of just finishing up stuff. And which is great because we have the sun in Virgo, which can really help motivate people to get things done. It's a mutable sign. Whatever you've started, there's great energy to finish things. Whatever your spiritual practice is, there's great energy to enhance it. If you're a manifester, this is great manifesting energy because what is Pisces? It's boundless, it's limitless, it's this spiritual world, this kind of 12th house, which is almost like secretive in a way. It's just beyond the veil, but it's also our intuition and what kind of messages we could be receiving around this time, too. And all these things could be kind of, creating some kind of amalgam of what you're going to be experiencing in this eclipse. And so what do you think having it happen on your birthday?
Well, I think it's interesting you asked me that because there was another astrologer friend of mine, David, that asked me this I don't know, about a month or two ago. He's like, "So, what do you think now about a new moon that's going to start in your sign, and then you're going to have the full moon eclipse on your birthday?" And I had just come out of this big transformation, and I was like, "I'll have to ponder that one." But I'm excited about it actually. I mean, Pisces as a water sign does tend to be very emotional. Of course, a full moon represents the culmination of things. So I definitely think there's going to be a lot of tying up, with it being a full moon also in Pisces, which is associated with the 12th house. And, for myself at least, I'm seeing that actually happen in my physical life. I'm moving out of this home. I'm moving into, a new situation. I'm tying up some themes that have been associated with very, heavy emotional subconscious ties. For example, when I moved into this home some years ago, the reason I really wanted it, I was driven to get it, is because when I grew up, I never had a house growing up, and I wanted my son to have a house. So that to me, it was emotionally and psychologically significant. And now I feel as if, that goals have been achieved. He's getting ready to graduate high school, and now this kind of new era, this new theme is kind of setting in that I'm starting, to prepare myself for mentally, physically, financially, emotionally. And that, it's very tied to that subconscious part of me, that felt driven essentially to address, you know, a gap I felt I had when I was growing up, and provide something, to my son. And I realized, it really never was a gap. It was more mental and emotional, for me. And And so, people who are, probably already experiencing these kind of energies now, probably been thinking a lot about, ties to their past. Pisces, of course, has a lot of subconscious associations, even things with fear and shame, type of issues. And so I think it could be very heavy for a lot of people. But, I just want to remind, the audience that, these are times for you to allow yourself to release things, to grow through them, to recognize that you're finishing up a cycle, right? So you can allow yourself space to breathe in the new fresh air, as we, move forward, giving yourself that space and, giving yourself permission to let go of things which have tied you up so you can free yourself emotionally and psychologically, is going to be a benefit. So just let it go. Sure, transition is tough, right? Especially in the emotional realms. But letting yourself sit in that space, recognize what's there, why it's there, and then letting yourself let it go is just going to bring in that new, fresh energy for you.
I love that. That's such a good, almost like tagline for this full moon lunar eclipse. Let it go, because that is has so much to do with the sign of Pisces. It's like you are kind of in this last sign of the zodiac that you're getting ready to, yeah, release everything. It's like transitioning into the spirit world in a sense, and you're leaving whatever behind that doesn't serve you so that you can move into like a fresh initiation of a new cycle. And so, yeah, it probably is going to be heavy for some people, especially those of us who have, uh, you know, natal placements that this moon is going to affect. It's going to be it'll be opposite my natal moon in Virgo, and it'll be conjunct my natal Pisces, or my natal Mercury, I'm sorry, in Pisces. So we'll see what happens. Hopefully I don't yell at anyone, or I don't know, or just cry nonstop.
Hey, I might cry nonstop.
Yeah.
That's a good way to release things.
It is, and it feels really good. I mean, I have 4 planets in Pisces. I have Sun conjunct Jupiter, and then I also have Venus conjunct Mercury in Pisces. And so it's, yeah, there's a lot of crying and releasing that I need to kind of process things, but it does. You feel a lot better. You feel a lot lighter. You don't take a lot of stuff with you. It does help you move on and let go of things.
Yeah. And I'd just like to also point out that right now we have Saturn also in Pisces. Neptune is retrograde in Pisces as well. So, that can definitely lead to maybe some feelings that are more conflicting, but ultimately very good, right? Because Neptune retrograde really represents this idea of us living in an illusion, right? Essentially, like kind of the false constructs that we create within our psyche, which I think really has a nice direct relation to this full moon in Pisces, because this could really um, give people a lot of opportunities to let go of deep seated psychological issues, even karmic issues, right? By recognizing the kind of illusions that they've created around themselves, maybe the lies that they've told themselves. I mean, we all love to, make up lies for ourselves to get through life,
Yeah.
and they may benefit us for a period of time, right? Like I'll lie to myself and be like, today is going to be a great day when I work on this project at work, to get myself motivated. But it's just a mental strategy, right? Saturn, of course, can be a very restrictive energy, but as we've spoken about before on the show, while Saturn is a taskmaster, it really requires us to face, difficult things from time to time. It's also known as the great rewarder. So, for those people who are mindfully working through, this kind of time and taking advantage of the energies that are going to be associated with this full moon eclipse, you will be rewarded on the other side, right? So even if you're crying in bed all day long, like myself and Karen, you're going to wake up the next day feeling great.
Yeah, maybe you just needed some sleep. Pisces is known as being kind of a sleepy little sign too. So, hey, maybe you should catch up on some sleep because Moon conjunct Neptune on that day. There could be some sleepy vibes, and maybe people just need to relax because if we're out in the world too much, those eclipse energies are going to affect people and you don't know what you might run into. So maybe just chill at home if you can. I mean, it's a Tuesday, so it's also, yeah, it's a Mars day, so that's kind of an interesting thing to throw into the mix as well.
Yeah, but I guess on a side quest, so it's interesting you say that because when I was a little girl, when I would get upset and cry, after that I would take a nap, you know. But then I
Yeah.
would woke up and I felt so good. It really just taught me that sometimes we just need to let ourselves rest. And you know, the dreamscape, um, physiologically speaking, you know, exists to help us work out, you know, things that are rooted deeply in the psyche. So, you know, maybe today's the day you let yourself get that sleep. Maybe you take a sick day. Maybe you take a self-care day.
Yeah. Well, I mean, your dreams could just be crazy in general during that time. If we're having a full moon lunar eclipse in dreamy Pisces conjunct Neptune. I mean, and then Saturn is like, he's like 10 degrees away, but it's like we still have this idea of bringing him into the mix where there's like lessons. So there could be lessons that people learn from their dreams, or maybe it helps you in your career in some way, or who knows, because just because Saturn's there. Um, it'll just be an interesting one for sure.
You to the audience, you should write us and let us know how that day was for you, you know. For
Or in
myself
the com
as a scientist, I love to actually see how things correspond in real life and get that kind of data collection. So I think it'd be really interesting to hear from the audience, um, you know, some feedback on what that day was like, especially with it being an eclipse, you know, which intensifies energies as well. You know, but just remember, right? Like what Karen and I are doing is giving you an understanding of what might happen, not what will happen, right? So keep your mind open. And also just remember that, you know, these energies are here for your benefit, right? They're not working against you, even if you feel like, you know, they're not there to impose themselves on you, but to create the atmosphere, the ambiance, you know, necessary for your personal growth, you know, during that particular transit or event, right? So, you know, just like this week when I was packing up my stuff and moving, at one point, this little light bulb came on. And I realized that if I reframed moving into life upgrade or life makeover, it totally changed my perspective. I was like, okay, yeah, I can go back in there now and pack some more boxes. So just reframe it for your benefit, you know, to recognize that these are opportunities that are coming into your life. And again, Pisces is tying up a certain phase, right? That's going to be gone. And there's a new energy that's going to be coming in, right? So coming into that new energy, feeling fully prepared within yourself, you know, having tied up whatever those lessons were, you know, so you're not working through the lesson anymore. You got that. This is you now at the end, mastering that lesson for yourself, gaining a deeper understanding of what that really means for you.
Absolutely. Very well said.
Well, shall we move on to some of the other significant events of the month?
Sure. Let's see what else we have. So, a couple more things we were interested in touching on is a couple days after the full moon lunar eclipse. So, on September 19th, we are going to be having the sun in Virgo, trine Uranus and Taurus. And we wanted to mention this one just because anything that touches on Uranus adds a little bit of unpredictability to, or just kind of, unconventionality to whatever could happen. And trines are a beautiful, harmonious aspect. So, depending on what's going on in your chart, we have this in this beautiful earth sign. There really could be a chance for people to shine in some way. Maybe people who especially since Uranus is involved, there could be some people who shine on social media or on the internet in some way. There also could be maybe some unexpected animal encounters, which is really cool. I always like talking about that because I really like animals. And Virgo rules small animals, and then Uranus and Taurus. Taurus has to do with nature and kind of the wild earth and things like that. And so you could have an unexpected animal encounter. You could have a new pet come into your life. Your pet could be significant in some way. Or maybe the an animal maybe in some way facilitates like a friendship, because Uranus also rules friends. So there could be something with your friends that becomes significant during this time, maybe shining within your friend group. But it's really this nice grounding energy because we're coming off of this lunar eclipse in Pisces where we're all kind of just floating through the spiritual void for a day or two, and we're kind of in this dreamland. And then we get this kind of almost being brought back to Earth on the 19th with this really nice Earth trine. And so, maybe if you did take a day off or you took some time to, kind of do some spiritual reflection, or if you just needed a break to get some catch up on some extra sleep, come the 19th, maybe you could have an opportunity arise that gets you kind of your go in again and maybe remotivated to work on some things, or even just spend some really nice time in nature. You could have some unexpected insights.
Yeah, I love that. I think that really it does really tie well to into the full moon lunar eclipse, right? Because there's a lot of breakthroughs that can happen during eclipse season, right? It makes you think about things differently. It shines light on certain areas of your life in a different way. We're talking about how Pisces is associated with the subconscious, right? This kind of like uprooting realization of things. And the sign of Pisces too is associated with the fish, right? Fish are free. They're like water birds, right? So they just cruise around. So you could be having these breakthroughs that are happening right around eclipse season. And then, when Uranus, or when the sun in Virgo, which is very analytical and very down to earth, right, starts trining Uranus, then you could really start having big breakthroughs in these areas, related to earth, your finances, your job, relationships, your home, bonding with a new animal, just formulating different kinds of relationships. Virgo too is associated with the sixth house. So, maybe some breakthroughs related to your own personal health and well-being, some self-care, taking better care of yourself, right? How do you know? Well, you have to keep your mind open, right? Like uh, we tend to live sometimes like in a tunnel, right? We're so used to things being so structured in a particular way, that it, we don't recognize sometimes that there's lots of opportunities out there that maybe we're just unaware of because we're not paying attention. So, one of the best things I think that anybody could do this week is just to pay attention, right? Just be mindful about oneself, your environment, your life, and just if opportunities are arising, right, just allow yourself to look into it, right? I had a recruiter called me 3 times in the past week, and the first 2 times I was like really busy, and I was like, I'll get back to her later. She called me a third time. I was like, okay, I'm gonna go ahead and call her back now. Clearly the universe is like, knock, 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 like, yeah, somebody calls you out of the blue. This was unexpected, right? I hadn't spoken to this recruiter in probably over a year. That is very Uranus like, right? For something just to come out of the blue. Hello, if something's knocking on the door, go peek through the door and see what's going on.
That's amazing. I love that. And just to remind everyone, Uranus is said to be a higher octave of Mercury. And so we kind of bring into this idea of like communication, but it's like faster communication. It's, even more complex types of communication, more unexpected communication. So it's like if you just take the energies of Mercury and then like times it by 1,000, you get the kind of crazy energies of Uranus, but it's that craziness that's like this breakthrough energy. It's the craziness that I say with, like, I say that with endearment, because if it weren't for that kind of Uranus type energy, we wouldn't have these new inventions, we wouldn't have these scientific breakthroughs, advancements in technology, all of these things that really push us forward in humanity and our collective consciousness. And so this, with the sun trine Uranus, I mean, there's really an opportunity for us to even learn something new. And maybe something really complex, or maybe you bring about an idea that people might think you're crazy at first. No one's heard of this before, but you could be, with the sun involved, given a platform to share this, and the type of energy that's in the air on the 19th, it would be well received. So if you have some crazy idea, get ready to bring it to people's attention next week, if that's something you're looking to do, because the energy would be ripe for that, and people's kind of vibes would be receptive to hearing things like that.
Yeah, that's really good. I look at Uranus as well, it's known as the Great Awakener, right? So I look at like Uranus breakthroughs as spiritual breakthroughs, really, and a lot, Uranus is associated with geniuses, right? And
Oh, yeah.
geniuses just they look at things so differently than everyone else, but they often just have these, it's like an inspiration of something that does sound wild and crazy, but then they apply it and you see how well it works. And I feel like that is really in line with this idea of Uranus, this breakthrough energy, being in, trining Virgo, which is a very, it's an application based energy. So, those two things really could go well together in terms of really transforming something in your physical realm, especially with Uranus being in Taurus. So don't be afraid to try new things. Not only on that day, but around that day, right? Because these types of energies, they work on a gradient, right? So that particular day, it might be the strongest, but you might start feeling stuff before and still feel stuff after. But let yourself be inspired, right? Let yourself be open, let yourself hear your higher self coming through. I mean, that's a great day to do work with your higher self, your higher genius, to be just open, and then get communication, how you can apply that into your physical life. I mean, that's as above, so below energy right there, if I ever heard it.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Again, let us know how it goes.
Yeah, and I love that you mentioned that we have this kind of gradient of the energies, and it's because as an astrologer, I do get that sometimes people are like, "This is going to happen at this day, at this time," and it's like, no, it probably won't happen at that exact time or even that exact day for you. These energies will phase in and out, and we always want to take into consideration what you have going on in your chart too, because that would add an even more like specific element to what would happen for you. And so, yeah, of course, these are just kind of general things that could happen. It could be a combination of any of those things. Um, so we do have some other things coming up in the month. We want to definitely talk about September 22nd. We have a couple aspects in between the 19th and 22nd that I'll just mention. On September 20th, we have the sun in Virgo opposing Neptune in Pisces. So that's almost going to be similar vibes to the eclipse. Maybe things could re come up a few days after the eclipse, or even just more enhanced. I don't know, that just kind of reminds me of the eclipse energy. And then on the 21st, we have Sun in Virgo, trine Pluto in Capricorn. And I just want to mention that one because it looks like it's going to be in the critical 29 degrees. So, and I'll double check that. I don't think it's in 28 degrees. I think it's still in 29 degrees, but anything at 29 degrees um, is what we call critical. So it's something that is something's probably going to happen in the world around that time. Maybe not on that day, but um, anything that hits, especially Pluto at 29 degrees, you're going to feel it. You're going to feel it on a macrocosmic scale. You're going to feel it on a microcosmic scale. It's just going to matter, where have you been working the most the last year or so because we've all been dealing with this kind of intense Pluto transit. It went into Aquarius, it went back into Capricorn. I think like a few weeks ago, it went back into Capricorn. So you might have noticed a big change in your life. Like you could have felt like the energies were flowing great in Aquarius with Pluto and Aquarius. And then all of a sudden it could feel like you're maybe pushed back into something you were dealing with before. I've been kind of going through like a, I guess if you would call it like a dark night of the soul kind of thing for the past year. And I was starting to feel like I was coming out of it and I was starting to feel kind of more hopeful. I am postpartum, so I'm still kind of dealing with some postpartum stuff, just kind of getting back into being a normal human again after birthing an over 10-pound baby. But I really was kind of like seeing the light at the end of the tunnel with this period in my life. And then a few weeks ago, Pluto went back into Capricorn, and I felt literally tossed back into the pit and was kind of going over these themes and dealing with these things that were, for lack of a better term, were making me depressed. And I thought I was had dealt with it, but Pluto was like, nope, you're still, I want to make sure that you're good on this stuff, so you're going to revisit it. And that's why people get really upset, I think, with Mercury retrogrades, because it's like you think you're done with something and then you get these retrogrades and you have to revisit certain energies. And so it almost has kind of a similar feel to that. So wherever you're having the biggest transformation in your life right now, it could be getting shaken up again. So just so you're aware of it, it's more like Athena mentioned earlier, we're not, these planets aren't trying to punish us or do anything to us. It's here, we are aware of these energies coming up so we can work with them rather than have them kind of overcome us or create more unnecessary obstacles. It's like we know this is coming. We know that we're supposed to be dealing with these areas of our lives. And if you don't know what area of your life it is, you can always have an astrologer like myself or Athena look at your chart and see, what, where this big transformation is happening, because it's happening for everyone right now. It just depends where in your life. I think for me, it's in my fifth house of kids. So, I had a baby. And so I've been dealing with, a transformation in my kids situation. And it's allowed me to not, I'm a writer. And so I've been kind of, not writing as much. And so there's been kind of this block in my creativity, and I would like to get that back. And so it's just kind of dealing with the transformation of settling into this postpartumness and then also getting my creative vibes flowing again.
That's it. Thanks for uh, relaying a little bit of your story, especially how it relates to women. Um, because, when you have so many things to deal with, and on top of the postpartum, energies, right? Your body is literally renewing itself, from this, the cells up, like creating new life takes so much energy from the physical body of a woman, and it's almost like the body has to completely regenerate, which I think is actually a beautiful symbolism. But for any woman who's had a child, right, to go through that period where you're dealing with hormonal shifts now from having been pregnant and then not pregnant, but now you're breastfeeding, or finding alternate ways to feed, and you're not sleeping and your body's trying to repair itself at the same time. That is it's a very interesting time in a woman's life that I feel like, every single time a woman has a child, it totally transforms them. Even, I know a lady who had like 8 kids, and every single time she had a child, she just really changed as a person, right? It's very own alchemical transformation, to have a child and then to reflect on, the issues, specifically to astrology. I just think that's very keen. And one thing I just, want to talk about in terms of retrogrades is retrograde periods do tend to bring back stuff that we thought we dealt with already, right? But this is good because in the path of spiritual transformation, one thing that a lot of people don't talk about, maybe some are not aware, but this is part of I found that this is part of the formula, is once you've cued into what the lesson is, and you've worked through the lesson, and now you have mastered the lesson, right? You think, okay, cool, now I'm done with that. We're moving on. There's a final phase, which is the testing phase, right? It's like getting your final exam, at school. And once you revisit whatever that issue is, it gives you the opportunity to pass that final exam. And when you do that, then you can truly put it behind you, right? And move on into the next grade, so to speak. But what comes along with that is a gift, right? When you truly overcome a spiritual trial in your life, a lesson or an opportunity, you're gifted with something. It's kind of like a video game. You get to the end of the level and you feed the boss. And then you get to get all the swag, before you move on.
Get to open the treasure chest at the
That's
end.
right. You get to eat all the good stuff and armor up, power up. But a lot of people don't realize that, and I want to just talk. I want to just mention that because, I want you to not be deflated when something comes up, right? I mean, I found myself revisiting stuff that I thought I dealt with 12, 15 years ago, and I'm like, whoa, why is this all of a sudden coming up again now? I thought that was in the dust, right? But being able to recognize that a revisitation of certain, themes that you had recently or in the past is the opportunity for you to really now solidify that and master that and move on, and also to power up, right? You're like mega goju or whatever. Go forth empowered, my friends. Wow, and that's so on theme right now with this is all a big theme. We're tying it up, baby. And it's the end of the year's coming on too. So yeah, we're just let's pretend we're at the salon getting our hair did, and we're going to move on to the next level.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, and if we have all these nice Venus trines and stuff, it would be a good time to go to the salon if you're thinking, especially with the sun trine Uranus, like you could want to change up your look and it would come out looking good. So something to think about if it's happening. I mean, I have Virgo rising. I've been thinking about, I was like, should I lighten my hair a little bit? And then I'm like, no, I like it dark. But it's like, it's just funny because I just had Venus go through my first house because Venus went through Virgo. Now it's in Libra. It's in my second house now. So I'm more focused on money and stuff and my self worth. And then the sun goes through my first house. And I'm always like, should I change something? Should I do? And then, so I don't know. We'll see. I might have totally different hair the next time.
Whatever you do, you stay or you go with something different. It's going to look great on you.
Yeah. Thank you. We'll see, because last time Venus, I think when they saw you in person a year ago, like Venus was in its shadow. And I was like, oh, I really want my hair short. And I knew better. As an astrologer, I know better. But I think I was like freshly postpartum and I was like, no, I want to cut my hair. And it was horrible. So I was like, that is my lesson. I knew that Venus was in its shadow. I knew that I should not get a haircut during this time, and I did it anyway. And so I have no one to blame but myself. But on the contrary to that, I would actually think the vibes are good for changing the appearance right now if anyone's thinking about doing that. And of course, check your chart to make sure there's nothing like, working against that. But
I might come in with like a bob, like
ooh, that would be cute.
like a one of those severe
Oh,
cuts.
like the razor cut bobs. That would be cool. I think you could pull that off.
Drop that in the comments if you want to see me go with the long bob.
Yeah.
We'll take a vote. I vote for some pink hair on Karen. That's my vote.
That's so funny because I was actually thinking that. I was like, I would do like a pink streak or something because I do like pink. Like I like a dark pink. So that would be very fun. I'll have
That'd
to
be
find
really
a
good.
salon or something. I don't have like a salon. You know how people have like a trusted, I feel like I'm always looking for like a trusted hair person. So if you're in Santa Rosa area in California and you're a hairdresser and you think you can do this coif, let me know.
I'll fly out there and do your coif, girl.
Yeah, or I was thinking of a brother of ours that does hair that I would love someday if he's watching, if he ever wants to do my hair.
Well, you know what? Uh, I recommend everybody go to the salon, man or woman. Go get your hair done. Go get your nails done. Get a fresh shave because Venus is going to be in Scorpio on the 22nd.
If you're looking for a deep connection with someone, borderline obsession, because it's in Scorpio. And you have Venus in Scorpio. And so that's a great segue because on September 22nd, Venus is entering Scorpio. The sun is entering Libra. It's the fall equinox. And
Mm.
then on that same day, we're going to have a square to that Pluto in Capricorn. So it'll be at 29 degrees. Um,
That
Venus
is
in,
some very interesting equinox energy. Very interesting. Um, yeah. So, for those of you who are listening, Scorpio is ruled by Mars. Mars is in its detriment in Libra. The equinox is a season of bringing things into balance, but it's a harvest season, and we have Venus, which is definitely all about the harvest. So, what I'm feeling here is, the normally, yeah, Venus and Scorpio is it's a hot, sexy energy. That's a lot of most people think about. They're like, right. But like Karen said, right, it can borderline on obsession because Scorpio is a deep, deep, deep sign, right? So I would definitely think that, these energies all together really would equate essentially to people having the ability to balance their deeper emotional connections with another person without it going so deep that somebody feels out of control with themselves. Libra being the balancer, right? It being the path between chesed and gabora, or mercy and severity. Although I've never favored the term severity, because I think it gets misinterpreted a lot, right? But it's the balance essentially between Mars and Jupiter, and allows for a person really to carry that scepter of mercy, and severity appropriately, like King Solomon, right? It's a wisdom path. It's a path associated with wisdom. So this really says to me that, you know, the connections you make, romantic or not, right, in your life, will be greatly enhanced, through this wisdom energy, right? Allow you to really move forward, maybe in those particular relationships, or other areas of your life that you may have Venus in Scorpio. I have Venus and Scorpio in my seventh house. So
well, that's beautiful I mean, you could get a lot of people trying to wife you up, but you also could get stalkers with that.
do not DM me trying to wife me up. And no
But also,
stalkers.
yeah, very devoted too. But you would be a very devoted person.
I am. I've always been. um yeah, but I think sometimes when, there is a stigma that comes along with Venus and Scorpio, which comes from that obsessive energy. People are like, oh, I've dated people, you know, someone has a Venus and Scorpio, they were crazy.
Yeah, I've noticed that it can go a couple ways, or at least I've seen it go a couple ways with the Venus and Scorpio. You can get someone who has it natally who are very devoted, very they want a deep relationship and nothing else. Like it surface level is not going to do for them. They really want someone they can go deep with and have kind of this transformative relationship that evolves throughout their time. Or I've seen it go the other way where someone is like, it can be just a total interest in sex and that's it. And so it's about experiencing the sexual partners on maybe on a deep level, but not having the other parts of the relationship go to the deep level, if that makes sense. So, and most people would be maybe a combination of those things, but usually it's kind of that's kind of the gradient that I've seen with that Venus and Scorpio. And if you have another way that you experience it, of course, we would love to know.
Well, I'm definitely more of the uh on the deeper end, I want emotional depth in my relationships, romantic or not, and that means, intellectually, soulfully, it has to be meaningful. I superficial's just never done it for me, and so that's, when I find something like that, whether it's a friendship or other, that's where I really feel like that relationship thrives and where I thrive in those kind of connections, especially with Venus and Scorpio being in my seventh house, right? So, and my son happens to be in my seventh house as well. But, I've known other Venus and Scorpios that I've seen, I have seen them all, some of them also be, uh, deeply sexual. That's where they connect with people because it's a connection between the physical and emotional for them. But that can also translate into, this idea of being very obsessive, very volatile, emotionally controlling, manipulative, right? And I would just, remind the audience or maybe inform the audience if you're unaware that Scorpio is a very interesting sign because it has three essential like manifestations, right? It has the snake, the scorpion, and the eagle, and each of them are associated with a different level of consciousness, right? So if somebody has that snake, kind of manifestation of Scorpio, they tend to be very attached, and addicted to earthly things like earthly pleasures or, things that are, they become very obsessed about. When somebody transforms into the Scorpio in the scorpion in their consciousness, right? They still have the feet on the ground, they're still grounded. They still may have a very, deep connection to those kind of things, but it's not as controlling for them, right? It's not as if the earth now controls them. But they still have that stinger, right? Like there's still a part of their psyche that's very much under control by other things, right? They haven't fully moved from the external locus of control to the internal, right? They haven't become a full master of themselves. They're on the pathway though to mastery. When someone transcends, more to the than into the eagle form, right? They've totally freed themselves of that, now they're flying. Now they have the full vision, right? There's no other sign in the zodiac that has three different attributes like Scorpio does. And it's very intriguing, right? So, each of them have that depth that's associated with Scorpio also being a water sign, right? So associated with emotions and the subconscious and the psyche, but being ruled by Mars, an energy that is very passionate, driven, it's that external martial energy, combined with a watery energy. It's truly, I feel like it's one of the most intriguing signs in the zodiac, right? There's so many different ways that Scorpio energy can manifest, but the themes are the same. They just transform throughout the different manifestations of that particular sign. So, you know, in terms of this alignment, you know, I feel probably the Martial energy will be mitigated a little bit, you know, because we're moving into Libra, and there's that, you know, equilibrated energy with the equinox, of course. But there's that enhancement of the abundance with Venus, and this being the season essentially of, you know, bringing in our harvest. So I feel like this has been an actually a really cool transit, you know, and I feel like that energy being that is happening on the equinox is really, there's going to be themes that stick with us in the collective, you know, until the spring equinox, because the autumnal equinox is where we start seeding things, you know, um subconsciously, right? And really allow ourselves to go inward during, you know, the season as we move through up into the, you know, the winter solstice and then onwards. So that would be a great day to set intentions, I think, for yourself in terms of, you know, uh deepening relationships, bringing, you know, equilibration to your emotions, thinking about what it is you want to balance out in terms of your life with respect to abundance, um, you know, and looking forward into the spring equinox, which will be associated with the Ram Aries, i.e. Mars again. So it all ties together so great.
Yeah. Uh, yeah. Uh, that was all wonderful. I loved that. I'm just like, what do I say now? Um, yeah.
I went off into a diatribe.
No, I got lost in it. I was like, yeah, kind of swimming through those scorpionic waters with you. And I mean, what like the only thought I really would share with that is just that while you were sharing all that information, I was just thinking about the people in my life that I know that have like some good scorpionic energy are very successful people. Like you see people who even though Scorpio is this like very complex sign of like transformation, the occult, and like these phoenix type vibes, like you see a lot of people who maybe have a lot of Scorpio in their chart and live in the mundane world, and they're really good at it. Like you see people in business type situations with a lot of Scorpio, and they can be cutthroat, but in the way that they get sorry, they get stuff done. They you know, they're very definitive about what they're doing, what they want, and it usually leads them onto this path of success because you want this kind of you know, definitive responsibility towards something, and that's just something that I don't know if you see this too, that people with Scorpio are really good at. And when
That's
you
a
get
session.
yeah, they just do well in business, like, you know, and it's like and they probably use their intuition more than they would give themselves credit for. Like, I'm thinking about one person in particular who I know who's a girl who is a Scorpio sun and has a lot of Scorpio and does really well in kind of like marketing and in business, but and you know, is like kind of spiritual, but you know, it's not like like if you said like, would you use your intuition to like have gotten you this far? I don't think she would say that she does, but I think that she does because you know, it kind of almost just comes to you in this way, and Scorpio might not know why they feel strongly about this, but they're right, and it came from somewhere. And so that's something I think I just want to give Scorpios credit for. Like they do really well in the occult world, but they just do really well in the mundane world too. And so you got to give them props for that. Scorpio gets a lot of slack in astrology, and I feel bad for them because I actually love the scorpionic energy, and maybe because we're, you know, more into kind of magic and metaphysical type stuff, we can appreciate the complexity that Scorpio brings. But I love that sign, and they will, you know, as long as I'm not on the receiving end of it, they are just so good at telling people off. Like, my daughter has like a thick Scorpio stellium in the 11th house. She has like 5 planets in Scorpio in her 11th, and she will rip you a new, you know what? And it's so well said, and it's so matter of fact. And I just so combining that energy with we're coming into this kind of Libra energy and Venus is leaving Libra. I really see this theme of and thinking of my daughter even more so, this theme of like having this kind of strong sense of justice. And so during this time, the 22nd, if you've been looking for to see some justice in your life, you could see that. If people are dealing with lawsuits, there could be some answer to that, hopefully working in your favor, depending on your chart. I would think in most cases, yes, it would be in your favor. And just and the interesting thing with Libra and Scorpio is Libra is this kind of like sense of fairness, but it's almost like Libra has this passiveness where it sees the fairness, it knows what is just and where the justice should lie, but it's more like not as maybe wanting to deal with it, or they would rather just kind of stay balanced and kind of just straddle the center of it. But Scorpio, on the other hand, if justice needs to be told to someone, served in some way, not in, obviously not violent or in any way that hurts anyone, but if it's trying to get justice served in a positive way, we'll say, that's something that I think when you get this balance of Libra and Scorpio energies together, it works really well. And just to finish my little diatribe, I was talking to one of our brother in Australia recently, and we were talking about our shared love of Judge Judy. And I was looking at her chart, and she is right on the Libra Scorpio cusp. And she actually is a great example of someone that she has really strong Libra and a heck of a lot of strong Scorpio. And you can see it play out if you watch her, because she's very fair. And if you're a reasonable person and follow the rules of the court and stuff, she will be quite nice to you, and might be more inclined to look at your perspective. But if she needs to whip that stinger out or bring those fangs out on somebody and really put them in their place with the law, she's not afraid to do that. And she's very, very good at it. And so that's the kind of vibes, I'm kind of feeling on this. So yeah, we'll see how that plays out.
So, this astrology to me is just such a deep psychological conversation.
It really is.
Oh my goodness. Well, what do you think, Karen? Is there anything else that is super important that we should cover with our wonderful, beautiful, amazing audience before we sign off for the day?
Yeah, well, the only other thing on our list, and I just want to give Athena credit for this list, because she sent me before we did this a list of all the dates, all the planets and what signs they were in, because so that way I wouldn't have to like look at my calendar the whole time. Because I mean, I look at it, but this was like just this beautiful Virgonian list that, I have moon and rising in Virgo, and I have a sixth house sun conjunct Jupiter. So all of my Virgo really appreciated that. But the last thing that you had on the list was on September 24th, just we have a nice Mercury transit of Mercury being very happy in Virgo. It likes to be there. Trine Uranus and Taurus. So we get another theme of this kind of earthiness that we explored with the sun trine Uranus. We're going to also have Mercury trine Uranus towards the end of the month too. And so that'll be an interesting one. I would think there would be maybe something some scientific advancement could come out at that time. Hopefully something having to do with the environment or the earth in some way. And because we have these two highly intelligent, highly communicative planets together in these earthy signs. And so yeah, I mean, even in your work, I would think things could ramp up in your field of work a little bit too. Not that you want that.
Already
We've already
happening.
talked about how we don't want that. But it'll be in your favor.
I'll
It'll be
never say I don't want innovation. I do have a rising sign in Aquarius, but
That's true.
yeah, I really love this because it makes me feel like, earlier in the month there could be some revelations, on this kind of higher plane. And because, Uranus has such breakthrough revolutionary energy, that might just need to sit and resonate with people for a little while. And then as, the Mercury energy now becomes more emphasized in Virgo, right at the end of Virgo too, right? Maybe now this is when people have the ability, to bring those higher revelations down cognize them into something that can be spoken more fluently and be able to, reveal their revelations. When I was in grad school, I took this fantastic class. It was called Communication in STEM, and I loved it. I feel like it was one of the most valuable classes I took. And essentially, the premise was, it doesn't matter how great your research is. It doesn't matter if you've made the most amazing discovery ever in the universe. If you don't know how to communicate it to people, it will mean nothing, right? So, the class essentially, focused on teaching people skills and how to communicate their scientific research to anyone, to a 5-year-old, to someone, to a lay person, to someone, who was at a PhD level, like wherever you were, and for however long you're in contact with them, whether it was on the elevator for 2 minutes, or, you're at a conference, or you just happen to see them at, your professor's house or something, you get to actually have an opportunity to talk with them over the buffet table. How do you approach that, right? So I feel like that's a great lesson for everyone, right? Just to consider, especially people who, work deeply with the spiritual traditions. Um, uh, there's this kind of reputation that we all have for just being a little kooky, like, little, there she goes with her crystals again, right? But it's because people, they don't have an understanding of what, these arts mean and what they can mean for them, and why they're significant, right? We all have our own language, a lingo, a jargon, right? That unless you've studied that, people don't understand. So I would challenge, I'm going to use this as a challenge to the audience. I would challenge you during this lovely time of September, Virgo season, ruled by Mercury, as we're going through these Uranus and Mercury, kind of accentuations in the energy, to ask yourself how you might be able to communicate some of these concepts without proselytizing, right? We're not trying to convert people over to our stuff, but when, if you're in a situation where maybe you see that some information could help ping someone out of their, out of their little box, right? They're your audience. How could you communicate maybe, some of these spiritual themes, topics, etc., to someone where it would provide some help, to them in their life, even if they're not into the kind of spiritual and esoteric arts. That doesn't mean that that fundamental lessons that we focus on, like personal transformation, how to get through that, alchemical changes, the phases, transitions, astrological energies, couldn't somehow be communicated to someone, to help bring them, some care, some support, some positivity in their life. So that's my inspiration.
I love that.
And I love you too.
Oh, love you too.
All right, Carol, I'm going to let you give the sign off for the day.
All right. Well, thank you everyone for being with us. Best of luck to everyone for these, for the rest of the month. Hopefully we will get more of these out to you. I apologize for not having the September out earlier. That was all me. I had COVID, so I couldn't do it at the beginning of the month. But yeah, we're looking to kind of get these out more often, so you know what kind of the astrological forecast is coming up, what to expect. And as always, if you want to see how these energies are going to be affecting you, or if you would like a natal chart reading, or if you would just like guidance, we are available to help with that. You can reach out to either one of us if you would like to book a session with either one of us to talk about the energies, talk about, what kind of guidance that we can help you with. So yeah, thank you so much for being here. We really appreciate it, and we'll see you next time.
Love you, everyone.
Love
Thanks.
you.